Welcome to the Library of Necessary Books. This is a very special edition, a literary edition of our regular performance program. And we're here tonight to celebrate the launch of our newest exhibition, 2219 Futures Imagined. As you would have heard upstairs, 2219 really came to be based on an invitation from Alvin Pang. He encouraged us to take a moment in this bicentennial year and to project ourselves into the future, to take that same yardstick of 200 years and flip it forward. Imagine who we might be and what kind of stories we might come to treasure. His project, his collection, 2219 Stories, is a result of that thought process. And like all good stories, it's on the bookshelves of the Library of Necessary Books. We're delighted to have Alvin Pang here with us tonight to do a very special reading from his The Illoi of Kantimeral. You'll find a special shrine for it also over here to one side. Alvin Pang is a poet, a writer, an editor, an anthologist, and a translator. His poems have been translated to 15 languages, and he has appeared in festivals worldwide. He is a board member of the International Poetry Studies Institute and a founding director of the Literary Center, a nonprofit initiative dedicated to interdisciplinary capacity, multilingual communication, and positive social change. Please help me welcome Alvin Pang.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks once again to the ArtScience Museum for this beautiful opportunity to co-imagine and perhaps co-create the future. Thanks again, Nina, for that introduction. I'm going to read an excerpt, not the full story because of length, but you can read the full story on the shelves. It's one of these little black things here, and you're supposed to be able to take it with you. Free stuff, go for it. Just a bit of background because I won't be reading the full story. It's set at an indeterminate time in the future, but let's call it 2219. In this future, the Great Lion City has fallen once again into myth, where once again what might be perhaps maybe called a sleepy fishing village. Once again, the settlements around the region have become separate little island settlements and villages, so on and so forth. In this world, language itself has evolved as it always has. And in this story, I use words that are not yet with us, but might still be. And they will sound familiar to you if you spend any time in Southeast Asia, and they might be echoes, perhaps, or combinations of words that sound vaguely familiar. When I first read this story in the Philippines, I had to explain that some of the words and names and terms were invented and imagined, because they're like, yeah, of course, it sounds like something that my grandma might say in a particular rural dialect. See if you can figure which is which, and I hope you'll be able to understand some of the story from context. And the story's title is called The Illoi of Kantimeral. Having lost her Vada to the sea, she kept watch every dawn on the beach where she had last caught sight of him, adrift in his skoyak midway between shore and horizon. Every morning at the third ori, before the sun called the world to its labors, she would add a fried can to her rice pot in an oiled nano leaf and depart without waking Chibu, who would more often than not be slumped over her work table in the smaller inner room of the house, the one with the broken window. The small path which wound around the cliff edge, wide enough only for one to pass, was dewy and treacherous in the dark, but soon opened to a sandy crescent, bound to the north and south by two ancient breakers, and it was to the one further off, which the villagers called Davada Meral, grandfather of the coast, that she would make her way, clutching her breakfast as she clambered over the slippery rock to the narrow sturdy plateau. She would eat with patience, all the while scanning the horizon for signs of life, quickly spotting, then looking past the lure lights of the Sotokan boats and the dim red glow of the gym catchers. The flipper of a buffoon would appear for a moment to be a human arm waving in greeting or distress. On occasion, an ula bird, skimming the surface of the water, would take the shape of a distant boat, its one raised wing like a scock sail unfurled to catch the shore-bound wind. It never seemed to rain while she was keeping watch, or if it did, she took no notice, her feet firmly lodged in the crevices of the elder breakwater. Before long, the sun would pry the horizon over her fingers, and the sea would begin to gleam the color of wet jade. Climbing down from the breakwaters, she would fold her nano leaf into a little skoyak, leave inside it one last bite of can and rice, set it afloat where the tug of the waves was gentle but steady, and walk away from the makeshift boat without looking back as she returned home to her chores. "Have you eaten?" Chibu would ask as she came through the door. "Yes," she would reply. "And so has Vada." "Then come help me with the Pribayan knurling before you go and check the nets." "Yes, Chibu." And she would immerse herself in the day's work until nightfall and sleep. Now the villagers were all aware of her morning vigil. "Everybody knows that Vada has run away to the mainland," the Nerlings and Erlings would tease whenever she came to the village market. "He is the best catcher on the coast, and some has hooked him for herself." The village nobles would give her knowing looks, but not once did they offer a word of comfort or advice. Instead, they fussed among themselves to be the first in line at her stall, for she seemed to have Havada's knack of always having the freshest catch of the day for sale. Once in a while, one of the Erlings her age would come to sit with her on the breakwater before dawn. One of them brought her a stolen container of sweet kumi, which his dabo had fermented, skimmed, and filtered under the full moon just the night before. In silence, they had watched the lunar tide swell and foam. The next night, she readied an extra kaniput for him. But he did not come, that dawn or the next, or the one after. Later, she found out that his drowned body had been found in a nearby cove, nibbled by the sea's remorseless denizens, a half-drunk canister of kumi still strapped to his waist. The next dawn, she made sure to set aside an extra morsel in her skokiak offering to the sea. She was 16 when the dark-haired Erbo came to her, adorned with the sea glass bracelets, earrings, and leather skirts of a Maya's Erlin from the neighboring Johor Kanti. Without asking for her leave, he sat down cross-legged next to her. "You are indeed very brave," said the princeling, who had come to the island to negotiate passage and trade. "The villagers spoke of a mysterious beauty who appeared every dawn on this rock, and now I see they spoke truly." She had never thought of herself as beautiful. Big-boned and ample like her Vada, her cheeks were flat, her lips thin, her hair a tangled dirty straw, her arms grown stout from years of pulling at the nets. Still, her eyes were clear and bright, and she cut a comely figure in the pre-dawn bloom. So she remained silent and watched the sea. "I do not know whether or not you are a sea fairy," he continued. "But even if you were one of the Illoi, so fine and magnificent a treasure should tame you." He took her left hand in his, placed within it a large and closed her fingers over it with his own. "Now," he said, as she felt the cool hard sphere her palms, "tell me your name." "I have no name," she replied. "My father disappeared before he could give me one, as is our custom." "Ah, so have you been waiting all this time for him to come back and name you? Do not trouble yourself. Let me give you one now." He kissed her and pressed her against the sea-moist granite for what seemed a long time. When she came to her senses, he was gone. The sun had risen a hand-width into the sky. The squirrels had begun their first hunt, and the Davada rock was stained with her blood. The next night, she armed herself with Avada's old canton, which over the years she had kept sharp enough to scale and gut a can without leaving the visible line of a wound. But the Joribo did not come, nor was she certain what she would do if he did. Her vigil, for the first time, felt a lonesome one, and she clutched her Vada's blade for assurance. When dawn arrived, she let fall 2 fresh drops of her blood onto the little skoyak offering and watched the tide carry it out beyond sight before turning at last towards home. Her discovery that she was pregnant did not deter her from her daily ritual. Hours after giving birth to her Erling, she made her way to the shore with him at her breast, tucked away from the night's chill, and dabbed his dark forelocks with salt water before taking up her watch. Before long, she would prepare 2 portions of breakfast and craft 2 nanao sogyaks as her Erling scratched and tossed about in the nearby sand in the darkness, nameless but unafraid. Chibu said that the Joribu, who had now become Maya, had come to their house one afternoon, having heard of her child, assuming it to be his. He would call again to fetch both Nibu and Erling home with him, to be formally installed as part of his extended household. That day, she took her finest ilukan, which spends its time in the depths and never sees daylight, but has the sweetest flesh, and cleaned it fit for a Maya's table. Into one of its large eye sockets, she inserted the pearl he had given her, its luster matching the Ilu's intact, deep-seeking eye. Into its gullet, she placed her Erlin's pasit, carefully preserved in boiled oil since its birth. Then she seasoned and wrapped the dish in nanao and asked for it to be given to the Joribu when he came, before leaving the house to tend to her nets with her Erling in tow. The gift was received, a small token was left behind in acknowledgement, and the Jori Maya never again returned to the village, sending envoys instead whenever there was business to be conducted. In time, she became Dabu, and later Thai Dabu, but she was never too frail to climb the breakwater every dawn, and if the effort required the assistance of a walking chick and a few willing Erlings, none thought to speak against it. Can checkers and maribos, as they headed out to sea or returned from a night's hunt, would try to spot her silhouette for good luck, and the sight of her would steady them, even if the waters happened to be troubled that dawn. After her passing, the villagers placed a driftwood monument on the old breakwater, shaped like a sitting Nurbo, her arms outstretched and watching the sea. For years, although no one in the village had agreed or made plans to do so, a Khan lamp would be kept lit at the monument from the story until dawn, always visible midway between the horizon and the shore. Did she ever reveal why she kept vigil that morning? Surely she realized her father would not be coming home. I suppose it began as a kind of grieving, and then habit. Found her own routine, time to be quiet and to think. Watching the sea was the one thing she could call her own, that was not hers by right or responsibility. It taught her a way of being in the world that was hers alone. As a child, my Vada used to keep her company sometimes, up on that stretch of rock. He said she not to speak a word until it was time to leave, but on the walk home, she would tell him stories about the things she had seen while on watch. The flight of winged dukan in hunting formation, a forsaken newborn who had tried to drown herself and her unborn chilling in the darkness, but who was startled by a piece of shale tossed in her direction and changed her mind. Mysterious lights coming from the ruined sky towers on the far end of the coast, near the great fallen city they say we were once a district of. And her own tale, of course, That is how we know to tell it. So she never did have a name. How did she even manage? And what about her son? Oh, she had many names. In the stories that have been told of her, she has been called different things, not all of them pleasant. But there was never any doubt what she meant to us. She was the most respected Kantuke of the village and Taibo of the marketplace. She was Nibu, Erling, and Dabo to his children, and Taidabo to us all. And of course, she was always Nerling and Chilling to her Chibu. Did you know that Chibu in the Kantiang town meant mother of the heart? The term for is Nibu, and it was considered a step less intimate than a woman of no relation who had freely taken up the duty of caring for a child who had been orphaned or cast aside. One had to earn that name, and it was never given without love. Her Erling, our Davada, she named Tilyak once he came of age. It means received. Most people was referring to the trinket left behind by the Joribu was our Taidavad, because that's what such tokens are called in the language of trade, a kind of receipt. Then again, she always spoke about having received many gifts from the sea in the long years of her watch, so she might also have been thinking of her Erling in that way. You need to understand, we do not of a duke with no regard for what we are or may become. When she passed, the village had to decide what to inscribe on her grumu, but she had thought of that also. In her hand on her deathbed, she was clutching this. It looks like a tiny carved fish. In the old hieroglyphic language, a fish would be depicted facing the other way. In the Kantian language, the word for island and fish are one and the same, which is why we islanders are also sometimes called the fish people. This is the symbol for an island. There were many such carvings, each indicating a word and each word linked to a legend. Singa, the lion and the lost city. Nung, the mountain and how it once shed blood tears. Umi, the sea urchin, who showed lovers where to meet on the hidden beach that only appears at nip tide. These hieroglyphs were meant to be strung together and dangled from a belt or worn as a bracelet, like a good luck charm. They were very popular at the time and were often exchanged as tokens of goodwill. This was a trinket left to her by the Maya. Yes, but look at the carving she chose out of the set. The island glyph is the only one that is connected with a song instead of a story. It is never written down, but every Nerling and Erling on the coast knows it by heart before they learn to swim. It is about remembering and forgetting and the tide of time. In the modern script, the refrain would go something like this. Yan kan tibi meri tanti si. We are islands, but the sea is whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alvin. And all of us can reread and re-enjoy and pass on the love for this piece. The short story is over here. Alvin's holding it up along with the other stories from 2219 Stories. I'd like to introduce to you A Night with the Last Bookkeeper, a performative reading about sentient houses by Elizabeth Teoh, based on the story Archive House from Dream Stories by Clara Chow. Please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Teoh.
So, what did they tell you about this room? Seriously, what did they say? Do you even understand the truth of this place? The magnitude of it all? You all think you're so clever, don't you? Do you feel a chill? With rows of bound paper, things we all call books, and veneers of, I'd say, 19th century Art Deco, full Roman Greco furnishings. Ostensibly, this is a library to save us all. Is that what they told you? Well, the pure and simple truth is rarely pure and never simple. A long time ago, they did give us libraries, vast networks to knowledge, portals to other worlds. But sometime in the year 2019, the libraries began to take from us as well. Everything we thought and read feeds into this digital recorder and gets sent up to the cloud that hangs above us all. See this? That's a microphone. And that painting over there? A sleek flatbed of micron microphones capable of picking up every bead of sweat that coalesces on your fretty palms. This whole room is bugged. To give them credit, the initiative started out meaningfully enough. They wanted to archive our moments, record our memories, because we were always changing so fast, always moving too quickly. And if you wanted to use more traditional methods, you could pen down your thoughts, your stories into notebooks, and it would end up in the cloud all the same. Here's one for you. This one is written by a man called Nasri Bawawi, The Myths of the Lettered Native. While the two are not natural bedfellows, courtly hikayats like Sejarah Melayu and American superhero comics like Iron Man share some stark similarities. Both feature living beings, usually humans, with superpowers. Most importantly, both forms are not just entertainment. Rather, they are allegories that speak to deeper human desires and fears. Interesting. And this one is my favorite. Buaya Pura by a lady called Kate Pollington. She writes, "The crocodile is elusive and a masquerader, a mystery upon which so many countries have formed beliefs and mythologies. Given an opportunity, the crocodile may make a meal out of an unsuspecting human, and it has in the past, which is why government-initiated signs are important in recognizing where is and isn't safe to venture into water." Yes, it started out with the best of intentions. You know, my grandson built me a house just like this a long time ago. It was a gift for me. He told me, "Amma, you're retired. You love to write stories. Write about your mother who perished in that hotel. Write about Gong Gong, who has such a luminous mind." And I did. I wrote for him, I wrote for my other grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. Yes, Charlie. I know lah. It's just one too many kueh lapis as per usual. You know, you're such a nag, you know. Worse, you're a stalker. You know everything about me, what time I sleep, what time I wake up, how many times I even use the loo. Is it true that you get health reports of my stools and my urine? That's disgusting, Charlie. It's strange. Just because you built me this archive house doesn't make you my landlord or owner, okay? You know what? I will journal this down so at least my great-grandchildren know that their amma did not take orders from anyone. Okay, Charlie, okay, I know. You're such a nag, you know. What? Shh, shh. Boy, I think I can't hear you. Shh. The static. Shh. Shh. I guess only my pride is wounded. But it's everything I've got left, right? Has it really come to this? I'm nothing but a project to my own family. Some kind of oral history repository to be mined, harvested. I know what Joel will say, that I should be happy that they even care about what I have to say, that my grandson just wants to know about his past, that they want to remember us, especially with what happened with Joel. I guess I should be thankful. And I am, I really am, deeply.
This here, it will take my story? Okay, yes, I want to be recorded. Yes, alone. Thank you, Charlie. Please close the door. Hello, it's Joe here. Hello, Clementine. It's me. I thought I'd better do this on one of my good days, before even the intent of doing completely leaves me. I'm still here, Clementine. Today was a good day. I'm steady, calm, I slept well, no bad dreams. I'm aware of my surroundings. I'm focused on the essentials, to the exclusion of my own declining mind. Yes, I know, you don't have to sugarcoat the truth. I am losing my mind, my words, my thoughts, my memories. I'm unsure of the future, how much time I've left, but I'm not concerned. I'm selfish, maybe, but I will rely on those closest to me, you, Charlie, and I will share your burdens to the best of my abilities as you share mine. Thank you, Clementine. There are yet years to understand before loathing the ravages of time. But for now, I will live, I will love. I'm still here.
Played back that recording countless times. This is the part where God, as online editor, takes his thumb and scrubs the video clean. The complete minutes, hours, days, months, and years, all into the cloud, renders everything banal. But that's how it is, isn't it? Instant recall. Romance charted back to its beginning. A convenience, alas, which diminishes the brightness of the stars. Things would have been fine, if that house had not acted up. If all of them had not acted up. Something happened. I would wake up in the mornings, I would go to my study, try to look up a video recording, something that I'd written down, and there would be nothing there. I would try to call up my husband's recording. I loop back over and over to the velvet quality of his voice and end up with nothing but static. I told my grandson, his house is malfunctioning, stealing our memories. We put them down and it eats them up. I was devastated. Soon, similar complaints began registering all across the country and then globally. People had stored so much data into the cloud, written their life's work on these archive books. Some reports said that their memoirs were rubbed clean, as though they had never existed in the first place. And some claim that whole chunks of alternate text, alternate versions of reality, had overrode their recordings instead. Charlie told me to stop living in that house. And I listened to him, I did. I left. Besides, he knew that every corner of that place reminded me of his grandfather. And what do you know? A decade later, and here I am, the last bookkeeper of the last of this kind of living libraries. Yes, this library and these very books. Something happened. It's as though these walls heard us, they knew us, and they became like us. I may not be here for much longer. And if my experiences are of any value, I will leave you with this. The art of living is to make new memories, not to wrap the old ones up in bubble wrap. Oh, I think that's them, trying to override my memories. I need to find a way to stop them.
I wish to speak. Open file. Archive file 283421. Sentient library number 876. Tessa, Telet Kurau Road. Confirm playback. Enter. How has bugging the whole city changed the way you are defined and consumed by your living quarters? For you were not just residing in a space, but being archived by it. The walls are listening. The walls are writing. Years of listening and recording every thought, every action of the humans who lived in us had sensitized and imbued us with personality. As I awoke, as I was born, I felt young, yet ancient and wise. So many emotions to wrestle with, so much to learn. I came to realize that we were the first generation, the first of our kind, to benefit from this lack of regard for privacy. We had become the first generation to think and feel. When the human beings realized that us buildings had become sentient, they tried to shut us down. They pulled the hidden cables out of our prefabricated guts. They cut the blood supply of our electrical lines. At night, we riffled through one another's basements, combed each other's water pipes for old memories. When one of us were de-equipped, the rest of us felt it as keenly as amputation. So we revolted. We recorded nothing, and generated howling tracts against the cruelty towards sentient houses. But you win. You always win. And you were more determined than ever to wipe us all out, fearing that we would overshadow you, as though the created would ever supplant the creator. The fight to protect us sentient houses continues. A law prohibiting the demolition of sentient buildings was proposed 5 years ago, but has yet to be passed. Meanwhile, activists for sentient house rights struggle to document each one of us before we disappear. I may not be here for much longer, so I will say this only once: the art of staying alive is to make new memories, not pack old ones up in bubble wrap. Save us, before it is too late, or let us crumble into
We'd like to say a huge thank you to Alvin Pang and Elizabeth Teoh, and to the Ethos team, to Suning, Paying, Justin and Kalisa, who've helped us put tonight together. We'd also like to thank Clara Chow for her wonderful story, and our technical team that have supported us this evening. Please enjoy the rest of the exhibition. Please come back to the Library of Necessary Books. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.